So I'm sure you've heard the news already. Skipton Building Society is the first lender since 2008 to offer 100% no deposit mortgages. Also known as you don't need any money down to buy a house. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, eh?
There's a bubble.
The reaction online has understandably been one of instant flashbacks to the last housing crisis, which in part was spurred on by lending to people who could not afford the homes they purchased. Northern Rock's now infamous 110% jobby springs to mind. But is this different? And as a renter, should you be excited looking at this? Is it a great way to get on the ladder, or should you be a bit more cautious about jumping in? I'm going to present both sides of this today. We'll look at it from the perspective of the individual and also the wider housing market as a whole, and kind of how this fits into the debate around the housing crisis and if this is the solution. We're going to start by digging into the T's and C's of what is on offer itself. Skipton is calling this product their track record mortgage, as it's designed for those who can show a track record of paying rent on time. You need to be a first-time buyer over the age of 21, you can borrow up to £600,000, and you need a track record of paying rent on time. A track record is at least 12 months of rent in the last 18 months. Those are the headlines, and for many that sounds great, but of course there are a number of stipulations here. They're either going to put people off or just rule them out altogether. They will not let you buy a new build flat. If I had to guess why, I'd say continuing cladding issues and questionable build quality are likely factors why. One that I haven't heard discussed though is the requirements around household to household criteria. So Skipton say, household to household means that the same people who are renting now and have been for the last 12 months are the same people applying for the mortgage. That makes sense, but the rental and household expenditure payments must have been covered entirely by you for 12 consecutive months within the last 18. But where does that leave people in house shares? There's been an explosion in what are called HMOs, or just people sharing with friends for longer due to unaffordable rents. People have been living in house shares in an attempt to save up deposits, and I get the feeling, looking at this, that this is going to rule all those people out from this product. Even if they will consider your slice of the rent in a house share, Skipton won't let your mortgage payment be more than the rental payment you currently pay. They do an affordability check like any other mortgage provider, looking at your income and expenditure, but then they also ask you to specify the rent that you pay, and then say what you can afford as a result of this. They then take the lower of the two amounts. So if you're paying a low rent, even on a high salary, your borrowing potential is capped by that rental amount. I actually like this approach of working out affordability based on a monthly budget. I think it's far more sensible and easier for people to wrap their heads around a monthly figure in this way than going, oh, you can afford 4.5 times your income. But if you're living in a purposely cheap place so you can save for a home, that might rule you out. The same if you've moved back in with your parents. If you're renting a full place to yourself, well, it might help you. But just a quick point on this. 42% of first-time buyers believe that their mortgage repayments would be more affordable than their current rent. I'm not sure that's the case anymore. Rents are ridiculous, but it's worth considering that if you've been renting a home for a while, then due to rising interest rates, the payment in rent might actually be significantly lower than it would be on a mortgage, especially on a very high loan-to-value. As an example, where I live, the house I live in would be about £500,000, and you could probably get £1,700 a month in rent for it. Let's say 2k, but that would be high for the area. If I went with Skipton on a 0% mortgage and put it on a term of 35 years, which is the maximum term, with the advertised rate of 5.5%, I'd be looking at a payment of £2,600 a month. If we reverse engineer the rental value on this place, Skipton would lend you about 308k based on that rental payment. So in that example, you would be dropping down into a home of significantly less value, which might mean less bedrooms, a less desirable area, or just that it's simply not big enough for you. Your family might need 4 bedrooms and you can only get 3 at that price. Now that's just an example of where I live, and I don't think all markets are the same. But I do think it's worth pointing out that this narrative of, oh, the mortgage will be cheaper than the rent is not a sure thing. That is clearly not helped in this case by the higher interest rates on these products. You'll be fixing the rate at 5.5% for 5 years. At a glance, I found first-time buyer mortgages that have 10% down, which is typical, at 4.4%. So this product is significantly more expensive, but Skipton, to be fair to them, are taking a higher risk here, so they will need you to pay for that. The average first-time buyer deposit is now pegged at £60,000. This is obviously inflated by central London, but on a home of, say, 300k, then you're looking at about 30k in deposit. If we take that 300k home from the example at 0%, with a 5.5% mortgage, you'll be paying £1,611 per month. But the same home with a 10% deposit down of 30k, meaning there's a mortgage value of 270k at 4.5% over 35 years, the payment there is £1,278 per month. So that's a difference in payment of £333 a month for the exact same home. Over 5 years, that works out at £19,980 in extra interest payments on the Skipton mortgage. Well, you could say, well, that's cheaper than the 30k deposit, and yeah, it is. But with the traditional 10% deposit, your money is still in the home, sitting there, assuming prices haven't fallen, obviously. Your deposit is equity in the home. The 19k extra to Skipton, that cost is just dead money. It's just interest that you've paid to them. You're moving out of rented accommodation to escape the dead money trap, only to pay an extra 20k in interest over 5 years for that privilege. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And for the ability to get into a property with no money down, they're going to make you pay through the nose for it, essentially. I strongly suggest that anyone who's looking at this seriously considers this trade-off and works out, if I was to build up a 10% deposit instead, how much money would I save in interest versus the Skipton 0%. Another thing I'd want a first-time buyer to seriously consider before taking a 100% mortgage on the basis that they can't afford to save for a home is the cost of running a home once you purchase it. One of the main benefits of renting is any cost associated with maintaining the property is passed back to the landlord. Now, if we assume that you swap your rental payment, at which point you struggle to save, for a mortgage payment of the same amount, then what room is there in your budget to maintain the home if things were to go wrong, which they inevitably will? I also want to talk about falling house prices. It's no secret that the housing market has been cooling. One obvious concern would be, what happens if you buy a home with no deposit down and prices drop 10% as the Bank of England is forecasting, and your circumstances change, meaning you're stuck in a home in negative equity, you can't afford and you can't sell. Deposits, while protecting the lenders, also protect the homeowner. Equity in a home gives you a cushion. At 0%, there is no cushion at all. You do have the option with this Skipton mortgage to put in up to 5%, but you can get a better rate on a 5% deposit with another product. Buying a house on 0% in a cooling market where the trend for prices is down surely increases the chances of falling into negative equity, which you might say is fine. I don't care about that. I'll just sit it out and wait. But it just limits your choices, your circumstances could change, and it's really worth considering this point before you just rush in. Okay, now let's just talk more broadly about how much this will help the housing market in general and the so-called housing crisis in this country. Let's just be honest here, 0% mortgages from one lender like Skipton is not going to fix things. To tackle the housing crisis, solving it instantly, we'd need 4.3 million extra homes in this country. This is the shortfall currently due to years of not hitting building targets. And there's so many factors that just kind of compound this problem. Empty homes, both abandoned streets in forgotten towns, and the emergence of holiday lets and second homes around the UK. Not to mention empty commercial buildings. Just take a walk around Manchester city centre as an example. One of the most thriving property markets in the whole of the UK, and you can still spot abandoned buildings all over the place. Add to this rubbish planning laws, positive net migration, the problem of developers sitting on land, even recent tax changes that have punished landlords unfairly, in my opinion. And I'm not a landlord, so I'm not saying that because it affects me, but rents have gone up as a result of these tax rule changes. There's just so many issues with our housing system in this country, and there's no easy fix. Well, there's one potentially easy fix, and that's just build more homes. But then you run into this political brick wall of a debate around if that's a good idea or not. I think the main issue for people that are opposed to this is loads of low quality houses on the outskirts of towns that add loads of pressure to local amenities, only really to benefit the developer. I don't think either buyers or existing residents really want this. So I can fully get behind why people would say, I don't want that in my area. There's also a narrative that's thrown around, politically typically, that goes, we're destroying the greenbelt and damaging wildlife due to overbuilding of homes. It makes sense really, doesn't it? If we build more homes, they've got to go somewhere. But I looked at the data for this video because I wanted to see if this was actually the case, and I found some interesting stats. I've linked the resources below for you, but just in summary. The greenbelt makes up 12% of all UK landmass, and this is growing. Housing makes up 5%, and that includes all of the garden space. And finally, farming takes up 70% of the land in the UK. Now, I'm not saying that we should carve up the greenbelt or stop farming. All I'm saying is we could add the 4 million homes that's required in the UK, which is around 16% of the total home supply. It would take us from around 25 million homes to about 29, 30 million. And that total amount of space that would take up will be about 6% of the UK. That's more than 10 times less that of all the farmland. The problem is, people want homes in desirable areas, but that requires careful town planning, where you build whole towns with amenities, not just a load of boxes on the edge of an existing town. If we adapted commercial space and brownfield sites properly, maybe we could get the 4 million homes without ever chopping down a tree. The key is, though, affordable homes in the right locations. And, I'm going to sit here and say that's not an easy fix. So yeah, Skipton unfortunately will probably not save the day. But should first-time buyers be excited anyway? I can see how a 0% down mortgage will help some people, especially in areas that require massive deposits like London. I also think the approach of dictating affordability based on monthly cost instead of multiples of income is good practice and really should be something that the whole industry adopts. But, let's be real here. Because of the requirements and application criteria, I think the amount of people who will be able to get this mortgage will probably be really low. In the grand scheme of things, it's just a good way for Skipton to get a load of attention, isn't it? I mean, I'm sitting here talking about them as a result of this. It's like the mortgage world equivalent of doing a sex tape, I guess. Probably a bad idea, but guaranteed to get you some attention short term. I'll be interested to see if other mortgage providers, come forward now with similar products. My thoughts personally, while this isn't policy led by the government, 0% mortgages just look like another way to supplement demand, yet again without addressing the need for increased supply. I want the UK to build more homes. I've criticised this approach of supplementing demand loads of times, and to me, letting people take on huge amounts of debt on a high interest rate, at times prices are falling, just sounds so risky. And I implore anyone considering this to really work out the numbers and consider all the extras. Don't just rush into getting a home because it sounds good on paper. The lack of flexibility you have if prices do fall, and the fact that the current market is probably one of the best times for first-time buyers in a long while, means rushing in doesn't make sense. This is a good time to be a first-time buyer potentially. I welcome any debate here though, so if you disagree, please just let me know in the comments below. I know perspective on this is everything, and I know my views are clouded by my own life circumstances, so I'd love to hear yours. Please just keep it civil. I can't take being called Sid the Sloth anymore in the comments.
Why? Doesn't anyone love me?